Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Neil Cavuto, and here's why the president believes it's no big deal not visiting the border. Who in the media is really going to call him on it? Think about it. I've looked into this, my friends, and here is what I've discovered. This illegal immigration crisis, well, it's not even a crisis. It's not inhumane. The way we are treating these tens of thousands of illegals dumped on us is what's inhumane. Not illegal, inhumane. In fact, to the mainstream media, it's not even about illegals at all. They won't even use the term illegal. Now, more on that in a second. For now, I want you to concentrate on how they're covering this story, not what they are including, what they are omitting. It is the way they frame this argument. It is the way they discuss this issue. By never using the word illegal, well, they rid themselves of the nuisance of having to explain all of these thousands of people who are breaking the law, our laws, our country. No, you see, they're not the problem, we are. And Republicans, well, they're even worse. They're not patriots, they're bigots. They're not against illegal immigration, now they're just against all immigration. It's morphed into that. Get ready for this, because what I'm about to show you proves it. These are unedited, undoctored, very real clips, headlines, stories from a sampling of news items on the ongoing illegal immigration mess that never use the word illegal once, not once. The Washington Post, June 30th. It's okay that Congress won't act on immigration. The LA Times, July 5th. A mounting backlog of immigration courts. Business Week this week. With immigration reform dead on Capitol Hill, President Obama says he will use his executive authority to make changes to the law himself. NBC News' Matt Lauer urging viewers to share their thoughts on Twitter by calling these latest immigrants, not illegal immigrants, by hashtag refugee riders. And they're never to be called illegal at all. NBC choosing instead the term undocumented. Ditto CBS. In fact, the LA Times and the Associated Press have announced a ban on the term illegal immigrant. They say it broadly and unfairly labels a large group of people. Well, that makes things easy, doesn't it? It's sort of like dispensing with the term global warming after a few harsh winters, then ta-da, it's climate change. Who can argue with that? So now by saying we have an immigration crisis, you could say that anyone who's against these ways of illegals coming here are anti-immigrant, or worse, human being. Suddenly, they're not for illegal immigration reform, they're against immigration reform. Immigration reform. Leave out the illegal part, and you might almost forget the billions we are spending on processing these tens of thousands of illegal kids dumped in this country into thinking that they are citizens of this country. They are not. And those opposed to keeping these non-citizens here are racist. They are not. You see, when you leave out words you don't like, you can kind of say anything you do like. But let me tell you something. I can call myself calorically challenged instead of fat to make myself feel good, but that doesn't make me any less fat. So fat chance it'll make me any more aware. But those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours. Use hashtag Cavuto and I'll share them with the world. First, to Accuracy and Media editor Roger Aronoff. You know, Roger, this started as a curious little project on my part, just seeing what I could get, just hearing and reading media stories. And it's true, illegal doesn't happen. It's a word you can't find. What happened?
Oh, you're exactly right, Neil. Great to be with you today, and it was a great setup. Yes, for instance, the Associated Press took it out of their style book so that you can no longer say illegal aliens because it's too judgmental and it might hurt someone's feelings, so they've just removed it from the lexicon. It's only used to describe actions and not people. And that
but they will freely write stories of those critical of what we're doing right now at the border. They can still be called bigots. They can still be called obstructionists or God knows what. But illegal somehow has now taken on a bad connotation. And who are we afraid of offending again?
Well, that's right. What's going on here, I believe, is that there's an agenda. They are pushing for this so-called comprehensive immigration reform, also known as amnesty, and they also want to protect President Obama. They have a lot invested in him. So this is what they're doing. I mean, we're looking at this 50,000 children that have come over, But there's really even a much larger story. There was a piece in the New York Times last week, and this is the New York Times, that acknowledged that since April alone, there have been 240,000 adult migrants, they call them, that have come across as well. And most of them are just released to go where they want to in the U.S.
Back and forth and back and forth. The recidivism is beyond the pale. But here's what is amazing to me. When you ignore the obvious, and you've written about this brilliantly, then you don't do what should be obvious. When you talk about the rights of illegals, or illegals have to be given a license to drive, and illegals in some communities, they even have to be given the right to vote. In New York City, they're debating that as we speak. And I'm thinking to myself, what part of illegal do they not understand? What part of non-citizen do they not understand? What part of stealing their way across the border for whatever reason do they not understand? And then I'm thinking of all the well-intended immigrants who are coming here and going through the process, who also write me and say, what the heck?
You're absolutely right. I mean, this is the worst. It's for the legal aliens, the people who do the right thing and get in line and come here. And this flood of illegal immigrants has created massive headaches for them. And for many of us who are really very pro-immigrant but anti-illegal immigrant, this is a disaster, and it's really a manufactured crisis. You look back at a couple of things. Obama's trying to blame this back on this 2008 law, but really there was the 2012 DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Admissions, and the other thing is that we know there was a contract put out in January of this year that specified 65,000 children coming here, calling for escorts to bring them here. So they have known this exactly, and this is really a manufactured crisis. And now, even this week, we've seen this other kind of maneuver where first they put out that it was going to be 1.8 billion, and then all of a sudden, no, it's 3.7 billion.
It'll go steadily higher than that, Roger, but your points are all well taken as usual.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Oh, by the way, I was thinking of Nancy Pelosi's also changing the fact that it's not a border issue, that this is an America's issue. North America, Central America, South America, we're all one. Who knew? I had to go back and look at my Rand McNally nap. All right, to former Florida Republican Congressman Allen West, who's seen, heard enough. What do you think of this, Congressman? Illegal, no more, don't use it.
Well, Neil, you hit the nail on the head when you start looking at how liberal progressives changed the lexicon. They're not illegal immigrants. They're undocumented workers. You don't have drug dealers. You have unlicensed pharmacists. You don't even have combat operations. You have overseas contingency operations. You have man-caused disasters instead of terrorist attacks. And recently, just out in California, we don't have husband and wife anymore. We have spouse one and spouse two.
You're right.
So you're right. As you change the language, then you make the thing that is obvious and the problem that should be dealt with completely undealable. You can't deal with it anymore.
Well, that's just it. If you don't even define the problem, you can't address the problem. If you don't see the problem and just call it by something else and equate the same rights and standards to people who shouldn't be here that you do the people who already are here, the people who already are here get a little annoyed. And the people who want to legally get here and go through the process of becoming permanent citizens here, they get annoyed too.
They get discouraged. I mean, look at what is happening as far as the release of those 5 senior members of the Taliban. You know, everyone is calling them prisoners of war. That's not what they are. They are unlawful enemy combatants, and they don't deserve any rights. So these non-state, non-uniform belligerents that are captured on this modern battlefield, basically not represented or not recognized by the Geneva Convention, but yet what do we continue to do? Just like this gentleman, Katala, that we brought back from Libya, we get them constitutional rights, we get them lawyered up.
I think we're way too politically correct, Colonel. Now, not in your camp or Sarah Palin's camp that we should start filing impeachment charges against the president. I understand your frustration, though. But what I'm saying is we are so super
frustration,
careful. Go ahead.
My frustration is very narrowly defined with the president, because I see a national security threat, and that's why I see high crimes and misdemeanors. When the president of the United States of America makes a unilateral decision to release 5 senior members of the enemy while the enemy is still engaged in combat operations against us, that's providing material comfort and aid to an enemy. That's aiding and abetting your enemy.
I see your point there. I'll respectfully disagree with you. I can do so because you're in remote. If we were here in person, you'd hit me. So I feel safe in doing this right now. But Alan, I will say this, and I've already pushed time here, but I am overly concerned about this incredible politically correct environment in which we live, and now how the media is signing on to it with one of the biggest crises we face, that is our problem at the border, because you have a complicit media saying, what problem at the border?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you have Nancy Pelosi that says it's not a crisis. This is an opportunity. You have Valerie Jarrett, who has changed the language. It is a humanitarian situation, not a humanitarian crisis. Yeah. And you do have a complicit media that's going along with it, and that affects your ability to be able to make proper decisions to rectify the situation. But Neil, in closing, remember this. We had a president that went around the Congress, and he enacted by executive order an immigration policy which has now caused this problem down on our southern border.
Well, I said the back and forth, and he was blaming Republicans. And for now, Millett Fillmore hasn't been blamed, but I'm sure, give him time, Fillmore and his shenanigans will come to light. Alan West, it's always good having you. Thank you very, very much. By the way, political correctness still stands for the calorically challenged instead of fat. That one I'll let stay. Man.